Hi, now this is going to be a bit of a rant. It's sort of related to my Retribution Paladin guys, but it is going to be a bit of a rant, so be warned. Treat it more as a vlog than an actual guide, because it's certainly not that. There will be one of those coming out a bit later for updates now that the patch has gone live. But what this one is about, it sort of comes back to the reason I did Retribution Paladin guides in the first place, and that is because you could get good guides on certain forums if you knew where to look, but there was a complete absence of them for PvE at least. I'm not going to comment on PvP. For the Retribution Paladin on YouTube, they were either written by people who don't play the spec at all, or they're written by people who don't play it at a very competitive level, or maybe they are perfectly good players and they just can't be bothered to do a good guide, and they spend 5 minutes on the training dummy teaching you nothing at all. So given that that's my motivation for doing this, what I want to do is to explain to you what harm can actually be done from having poor quality guides. Now this video primarily concerns the Retribution Paladin guide that has just gone up on Icy Veins. So let's have a little look at the rabbit then. So it starts out as you'd expect in any guide that wants to demonstrate that it's a sensible guide. Doesn't really say who's written it unless it's this Vlad person, but who knows who that is. But here is the crux of it. The guide has been reviewed and approved by Shibex, one of the best Retribution Paladins in the world, who raids in Serenity. Immediately, anyone looking at this guide is going to say, this is it, this is the guide we need to look at, this is what's going to help us out. Also seems to be suggesting that this guide is for the pre-Legion patch, when you actually look through it, it's actually wrong for any part of the Legion toolkit, but it's far, far worse for the pre-Legion patch. There are significant differences. This is why I've produced a separate set of guides that are specifically for the 6 weeks that we have this out before Legion itself goes live, and my sort of post-Legion launch guides will be up next month, and they'll be in far more detail, and in some respects will advise different things, because it is different once you've got your Ashbringer, and it is different once you're level 110, and so on. Now the first thing I'm going to sort of look at here is, rather than in order at the moment, I'm going to go back in order in a moment, is stat priority. Because immediately here it has you stacking mastery. Mastery as in your best secondary stat. Now this to me is the crux of the whole issue, because this basically proves that whoever wrote this guide either has not played Retribution at all in the, well, I know they haven't played it in the beta. Anyone who has played it in the beta would not say this. Even if they'd played it in the alpha, they haven't played it for a good 5 months, because it was roughly that time ago that Mastery took a nosedive in value. And Shibex, I don't know, he or she, I don't know them. All I do know is that one of two things has happened. If they have reviewed this, they have either not actually read it and they've just taken the money and run. Sorry, that's what they've done. Or they may have played Retribution Paladin in Warlords of Draenor, but they've obviously decided, or their guild's decided, that they're not going to be playing it in Legion at all. So he or she has not even bothered to play the spec in the alpha and beta, the Legion alpha and beta, so they haven't actually touched it. Because you're telling me that 2 people could look at this and say this is correct. Just to counterpoint it, in the Paladin Discord channel, in the Retribution Paladin Discord channel, and there's a whole range of Retribution Paladin players there. You've got, from the very, very top of things, the people who actually do the Retribution theory crafting. In other words, the top experts in the world outside of Blizzard, or even inside of Blizzard, depending on your point of view, on Retribution Paladins. And you've got them all the way down to people like myself who know quite a lot about it, but not the theory crafters, but play it at a high level. All the way down to people who just play it casually, may not even be in the beta, but they've sort of tried a few things out on the PTR at least. every single person looked at this guide and has been posting on Discord about how dreadful it is and how laughable it is. And people actually say it's laughable. It's actually not laughable. It's actually quite serious. But I'm going to get to that later. We're just going to have a look through some of the other things in this now. So, come on, back to the beginning. Oh, dear. Right then, so let's go through it. Builds and talents. So what they seem to have done here is a bit of a graphic where they've sort of ticked. Presumably these ones are suggesting, yes, there are certain situations in which these can be useful. Question mark means I don't know. Maybe they don't know. And cross means you wouldn't use these under any circumstances. And I, like everyone else, was drawn to this one. Blade of Wrath. Well, hang on, let's just scroll down and see what they've got to say about that. Blade of Wrath is not viable in any situation. Not only are they all viable under certain conditions, the real thing here is Blade of Wrath is actually the one that is going to be used the most often. That's what gets me. It's like you could look at two people's guides and they might sort of disagree on certain things. Like I take a lot of time and care to make sure that my guides are as accurate as they possibly can be. There are always fuzzy little edges under which certain things can change. For example, tonight we're having a discussion about the execution sentence in the pre-Legion patch again, because I am very much going to be saying that in single target execution sentence is better. The Sims are sort of saying no, use final verdict. And what it comes down to is the sort of logic that's been used, and also the haste that's been used. The haste that's been used in the Sims is actually quite low. I'm using the 30% haste, which is what we want to be getting towards. Where in my case, and the logic I'm using in the execution sentence, it undoubtedly comes out better. But there's one of those fuzzy little edges, because it sort of depends. You can have one guide say one thing and one say another, and they're both right under their own circumstances. This is something that's completely wrong. This is just flat out wrong, because Blade of Wrath, it's not even that it's viable under certain conditions. It's viable under most situations. Most of the fights we're going to be doing up until Legion launches, because that's what this is for, we're going to be using that. So it's actually telling you the opposite of what is good. But, you know, more about that later. So let's have a look at some of the other things, what it suggests here. Choice of talent in this tier depends on the encounter. Fine, yes it does. The best single target DPS choice of execution sentence. Now again, I would agree with that. However, you've got to bear in mind there are certain conditions where it's not true, because, you know, the people who've been producing these Sims show that actually on low haste values, and if you're, as a consequence of that, having to delay execution sentence every now and then as well, in actual fact, final verdicts will be better. Consecration, hang on a minute, for sustained AoE damage throughout the fight, consecration is best. Now, it could actually be. My main argument with that, again, is they're not really thinking about the reality of situations. For a guide that's going to be written for people who are new perhaps to DPS, new to Retribution, you know, they could be new to everything. You need to explain what that means. Under what conditions should they use consecration? Because in reality, there are only so many. They don't actually discuss the pros and cons of it at all. But that's, you know, I'm not saying that that's not a clear wrong thing. I'm just going to focus on the things that are clearly wrong. So in terms of that, I wouldn't pick too many faults with that. If I'd just come to that, if I was just reading that. Again, lacks detail, but there's nothing specifically wrong with that at all. No one really cares about it. Probably the reason they've got question marks in here is because who knows which you would use in a situation. They're correctly identifying Fist of Justice, reasonable default pick. But a lot of these things, you can make these decisions. I mean, all these statements so far, you could just come up with by looking at the tooltips. And that's why it's making me think, whoever's done this has just looked at the tooltips. They've done a classic, the sort of guide that I've been thinking I want to produce my Retribution guides to counter, the sort of guides that have been produced by people who don't play the spec, look at the tooltips and go, oh yeah, well that's obviously for you this situation, and they've just written a bog standard sentence about that. This is the thing that exposes them, as having not a clue what they're talking about. Not a clue. Justicar's Vengeance, a straight cross there. That's the default choice. Because it does the most damage. It doesn't do the most damage per holy power. You wouldn't use it in your normal rotation. But as we discussed in my guide videos, if you've got Divine Purpose, you're using your procs on that. If you've got a stunned mob, you're using your holy power on that. And this is the bizarre thing as well. It's like a cross on that and 2 question marks here. So they're not even advocating any of these talents. Justicar's Vengeance is extremely expensive, and so it's only worth considering in situations where you can use it against stun targets. Incorrect. You will use it with Divine Purpose procs. This particular talent here, they've sort of vetoed Seal of Light. Not at all reasonable to do that. Let's see their reasoning in that. Cost of your movement speed would only be useful if the encounter required that you have to run for extended periods of time or over great distances. Well, therefore, there are situations when you should use it. So why put a cross on it? At odds there. But actually, their statement I would agree with. So I'm going to actually agree with their statement. So I'm not going to pick too many faults with that. But I would question why they've put a cross in there. But, you know, that is what it is. This one is the most troubling. The most troubling of all. Because, again, remember, this says it's written for 7.0.3. So we have to go on the assumption. At the moment we're reading it, we'll find out for certain when we get to rotations that this covers the pre-Legion patch. In other words, when this patch goes live. No, on Crusade, especially if you've got Legendary Ring and especially if you've got your tier set. And to say Divine Purpose, not sure. Divine Purpose is the default choice. It won't be when we get to our Ashbringer and a few traits on it. But for the here and now, I'm not saying it's going to be the one you always use. I'm not saying there's no use for Crusade, but, you know, Holy Wrath has its uses. It's just so worrying, just straight away. So let's have a look at this rotations thing now. Now, immediately what I can see here, this is exactly what I suspected with a single target rotation. You notice there's no Wake of Ashes. So this confirms that it is, as suggested, a guide not for the Legion launch where we've got the Ashbringer, it's for the pre-Legion. And that just makes what was said in those talents things even worse. Far, far worse. So now what they're saying, let's have a look at their general logic. For general situations, yes, Judgment. I wouldn't necessarily start the fight with Judgment, so I would have said something about the start of a fight. But in general, you know, yes, okay, Judgment, Execution, Sentence, blah, blah, blah. Templar's Verdict with 5 Holy Power. Blade of Justice. Now you see, they're prioritising Blade of Justice. They're even prioritising Templar's Verdict with 3 Holy Power over Crusader Strike. I'm not... But then it says, always make sure that at least one of its 2 charges is used in charging. Well, yeah, fine. So why then haven't they moved it higher up in the priority? This is what... So if you were to unpick it, you might go, yes, okay, that's sort of okay. It's not quite what I'm suggesting, but it's sort of okay. But then you have to have read that statement and understand that in actual fact that moves higher up. Why not just have it higher up? But let's read what they say as well, because you make a point to have the debuff applied Judgment active when you use that. That's fine. And when that does fine. It is recommended to delay casting your abilities very slightly to facilitate this. It doesn't say what very slightly is, but... however, delaying for too long. So there's sort of what it is. Doesn't give you any advice on how to do that for execution sentence, of course. But we'll, you know, they talk about subtleties with the Holy Power section, so we'll wait till we get to that. In terms of multiple target rotation, interesting there. I would query that, but you know, again, I've already queried what's gone before it, so there's no point. It's obviously going to be the case that I'm going to have issues with what they say in the AoE rotation, and they make no mention of 2-target cleave as well, which I think they should. Cooldown usage, there isn't really any cooldown to think about. We've got Avenging Wrath, that's it. So never mind. So let's have a look with their holy power nuances that they talk about. So are they going to give some advice on use of execution sentence? Sorry, my mouse wheel's being a bit funny. I think it's the website, actually. So let's have a look. Provided the target will still be alive 7 seconds later when it deals its damage. Doesn't seem to be pointing out the fact that that 7 seconds is reduced by haste. Again, it just suggests to me, not only is this someone who's only writing this guide based on the tooltips, they're probably writing it based on the tooltips. So I just got to reload the page. Based on the tooltips from Wowhead or something. They haven't even gone into the game and looked on the Legion. That's what it's suggesting to me, because otherwise it's an obvious thing to say that you need to talk about the fact that haste is reducing that. They're just talking about it as if it's a set 7 seconds. But again, it mentions it again. It's just repeating itself, though. It doesn't give you any advice on how to ensure that it's going to hit that judgment debuff. We had a look at stat priority already, and it's just sad. Gems and again, it's just emphasising here that you should be using mastery gems, which is just completely wrong. It's so wrong. It's not like if there were all 4 secondary stats were quite close together and mastery just happened to be the last in that row, you'd sort of think to yourself, well, okay, it's not going to be a disaster. But mastery falls way, way behind haste and crit. I mean, haste is really what you should be gemming for, to about 30% at least, and then maybe crit. Mastery is way behind them, especially for the pre-patch for which this is written. And given that these gems are going to be... I mean, it's not even the right gems. They've things here. These are the ones in before the patch. I don't even know what to call that now. 6.2.4, isn't it? WOD stuff. Because look, 75 mastery. It's going to be 200 mastery when this goes live. And that's going to be like 150. And I think, I can't remember what that becomes, 75 or something. They all go up anyway. So getting your gem wrong is going to be even more costly, because you actually get more stats on them when the patch goes live. This, and here is where my issue with this whole thing goes. Because you think to yourself, why am I so upset? I'll be doing my guides. Hopefully over time more people see them, like them, and more people will... I mean, my aim, of course, is eventually... I know you can't rush this. I know it takes a very long time to get any sort of following. But I hope that in time, it doesn't necessarily need to be me. There are other people producing perfectly good guides. But eventually, you know, people like me, they'll come to them and get the accurate guides. So why am I so upset? And the reason is this. First of all, I thought I was just up against people putting rubbish YouTube guides on that. You know, that's ultimately why I've chosen YouTube as my main way of getting these guides on there, because mostly when you look at YouTube, it's such terrible guides. But usually you find good guides elsewhere. There are some forums where you do find good guides. So what makes me upset is people are going to look at this guide and they're going to use this guide and they're going to follow it, and their performance is going to be very, very bad. It's not going to be not quite optimal. It's going to be terrible. And what are they going to put that terrible performance down to? They're not going to put it down to the guide. The guide, after all, has been reviewed and approved by one of the best Retribution Paladins in the world. They are going to put it down to the spec. They're going to put it down to Blizzard. They're going to be going on forums. They're going to be saying in their own raid guilds, oh, Ret's shit in Legion. Ret's appalling. Ret's really bad. And it's going to get out and it's going to get about, because this person who may have used a better guide in Warlords of Draenor and did all right, and they were doing all right, they're suddenly going to be trying it out when this patch goes live and doing really crap damage. And the only conclusion they or anyone in their guild's going to come to is, oh, well, this person's been quite a good player in WoD, so they're not suddenly gone rubbish. You know, it must be the spec that's bad. So that's what makes me angry about this. And when things like that happen, people get those ideas in their head and they pass them around and they talk to them, and people will believe them. And you you get this misinformation getting out there. Now, I'm not saying Ret doesn't have its issue. It does have its issues, and I've talked about its issues. And damage at the moment also maybe a bit iffy. Balancing is still going on. Balancing is going to carry on going on all the way through this pre-Legion patch. They'll still probably be tweaking things even after Legion launches. We'll have faith that it will be right once the raids open up. But people are just going to have been turned off before then, or even after then. People might come across this guide later on and be following it. And again, poor performance. And they're going to put it down to the spec, not the guide. And that's what upsets me most of all. That's what really makes this annoying and really means that I'm going to... I mean, if anything, it's going to spur me on to making sure that I do make sure that my own guides are as accurate as they can be and as good as they can be and as engaging as they can be, to encourage as many people as possible to hopefully find them and steer them clear of things like this. But I mean, what chance have you got? I mean, against a YouTube guide by someone who doesn't have any real Retribution credentials, you can sort of win. But someone looking at my guide and then looking at this is instantly just going to look at it and go, oh, well, this guy is in a guild far, far ahead of you. I'm going to follow this guy, you know, where I'm saying something different to this one. But it's just so annoying. And everyone who has played Retribution in Legion, like whether it's in the alpha, the beta, or even the PTR, knows that this is so badly wrong that they know it's badly wrong. And what is also baffling, I mean, I've explained what's annoying to me. What is baffling to me is how this event ever happens. Icy Veins is a guide site. It's a site for going to accessing information. That's their model. That's their business model with it. Why on earth, I can only assume out of laziness, I mean, who else? It's easy to find people to write these decent guides. And I'm not saying all the Icy Veins guides will be rubbish. I know at least the Enhancement Shaman one will be good, because that's been written by someone in my guild who is a top Enhancement Shaman. He does the theory crafting for it and all the rest of it. He knows absolutely everything about it. That will be good. There's bound to be other ones that are good as well. I don't know which ones though. But this won't be the only one that's bad. There'll be other ones that are as bad as well. And I don't understand why a website like this that relies on having a good reputation would risk putting such poor quality things out, such things that are so badly wrong, and risk getting a bad reputation. I mean, Noxic is the classic example that came before it. I would say, like in Missa Pandaria, people kept going to Noxic and it was given very, very bad advice. I would say if you look on forums now and people are asking for where there's good guides and things like that online, no one during Warlords of Draenor really advised Noxic because it got a bad reputation for producing shit guides. The same thing could easily happen with Icy Veins now. And for what reason? Just laziness. Laziness on the part of whoever wrote it, for not actually going to an actual Retribution Paladin to write it. Laziness on the part of the reviewer, who, as I say, has either not actually read it, they've just agreed to have their name on it for some money or whatever, or they've had a quick glance through it and gone, yeah, it sort of looks all right. But, as I say, maybe they're not even playing Retribution in Legion and so haven't even touched it in the alpha and beta, so actually have no idea what's going on. I don't know the person. But one of those two things is clearly correct, because when you've got a situation where, I mean, I wasn't the first person in the Paladin Discord to read this, some people were, when you've got people who, from top to bottom in that thing in terms of like experience and knowledge of the class, are just looking at this and going, it's so obviously bad, it's so obviously wrong, that it's just a worry. And it is a serious worry. I'm not even going to look at the macros and add-ons. I mean, they may actually, if you can't really go wrong with those. But the gear thing as well, these are not correct. These are not correct at all. So just to finish that one. So if you've stuck with this to the end, hopefully you can see sort of what my concern is. And again, in light of the reason why I started doing the guides in the first place, why you can see why it's such a worry. Using the word why there a lot, but that is the word that comes to mind when I was reading this. Why? But anyway, there we go. As I said, now in terms of my own guides, one of the things, and it very much relates to this, that those who follow my channel for some time will know that I've been agonising over is, of course, I know that when I produce guides, and I always leave them as late as sort of feasibly possible, just because I know Blizzard change things. I put guides out and they change things. And what is the best way of dealing with that? I think what the best way might be dealing with it is, rather than update videos, which is what I've traditionally been doing, the main downside to the update videos is what I tend to do is I do an update, and then if something else changes the following week, I do another update. But I sort of assume people have at least watched the last couple of weeks worth of updates. Well, maybe they haven't. Maybe they're only just coming across my channel and they'll read the latest updates, but then miss out on something that's also important that I talked about the week before. So what I'm going to do now, I think, is addenda videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my guides as they are, and then every time there's a change, or I've changed my mind about something, that occasionally happens, whatever, it's usually going to be based on a Blizzard change if I've done it carefully enough. I'm going to do an addendum video that covers everything that is an actual addendum from the guides, even if it means repeating what I might have said the previous week, and I'm going to just replace it in the playlist. Hopefully that'll be the best course of action there. I may well do one of those this week. Of course, I'm based in Europe, so it doesn't come out for me on the Tuesday, it comes out on the Wednesday. So I'm going to do some raiding, try some things out, see what happens, get some discussions with some other recs going, and then I'll probably do another little video towards the end of the week that may well be an addendum. Okay, but hopefully you found this video useful, if a little tiresome, just as I did. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and until next time, I'll see you later.